What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on D's Analysis. We're going to be looking at MicroStrategy today. We're going to go over some daily, some weekly indicators, and talk about what we can possibly see happening, especially in terms of Bitcoin. So we've had our massive rally up. Now, one thing that I have noticed is initially we were drawing our trend lines somewhat like this from the peak, but there's always multiple ways of drawing a trend line. So we would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the fifth touch was a breakout and retest, which it could still be, which it would make sense right now if this is the move. We're getting a bounce off the horizontal level of support and we continue up. That would play out perfectly. But like I said, there's always multiple ways of looking at things. What I have noticed is we could draw something from here to this most recent move right here, and now we get something like that where we're actually still in this. We never even broke out. If you draw it like that, we're still compressing. Price is still compressing. We haven't even made the breakout yet, which would kind of make sense as well. So we're just trying to navigate the markets and see where exactly price is. So we're going to move this over a little bit more. And now we're coming to this horizontal level of support. Let's see. I mean, we closed inside of it, which isn't the best sight, because we don't want to see that. The best thing we could get now is a nice engulfing green candle to make this a wick on the weekly. But on the daily, we closed inside of it. So now you start thinking, okay, what if we get a move down, push back up, create a wick, and then push down further? So I do think we definitely want to hold this long-term trend line that we have established. It's the bottom of the channel and trend line. We want to hold that for sure. I think that's a key level, because once we break that, now we start talking about horizontal level of support. So once we break this last trend line, this large trend line here, so price is going to continue to compress until it makes its decision. I thought it already made its decision. It could have if we draw that trend line from the peak. But if we draw it from here, then we haven't made our decision yet, and we're still compressing. And remember, the longer price is compressed in something, the larger the move. So if you're compressed for a shorter time, then the smaller the move. So I can see if I can find an example. For instance, like this right here. This is price compressing on a small scale compared to this and this. So you have a large compression, small move. Large compression, large move. So it doesn't always have to be the case, but that's usually how it goes. The longer you're compressed, the longer, like, it's essentially like putting pressure or holding like a, I don't know, if you're like squeezing, I can't even think of an analogy.
Cook a motherfucking, down, ham, a fucking.
You have air in a bag and you're squeezing the bottom and all the air is going to the top, and then it freaking eventually bursts out. That's pretty much what's going to happen with MicroStrategy, whether it's to the downside or to the upside. But I do think once we break this trend line and bottom of the channel, we need to start looking at horizontal levels of support following that. And that's when we start talking about the 230 level, and then potentially moving down even further. And then, of course, to the upside, we can start talking about the 350 level again once we completely break out of this new trend line that we have drawn out. Doesn't mean that this is the correct trend line, because we don't really know. We won't know until we can look in hindsight and say, oh, it was the trend line from the top, not the trend line from here, or it wasn't the trend line from the top, it was this one here. So we won't know until things play out completely, or both of them are partially correct, which is always a thing as well. So I do see price playing out something where we continue breaking and playing with this horizontal level of support, and we just keep compressing tighter and tighter until we finally get a massive break to the downside, or the same thing but to the upside, where we just start to compress more and more. The moves start getting tighter and tighter, volume starts dying down, and then a massive move up. Now I see that if this is the case, but if this is the case, then we have to talk about something else, where if this is the actual trend line, which we had established a while ago. So if this is the trend line, then we need to start talking about, well, we already had our compression, and this was our initial breakout, and now we're getting just a retest of this level. And now the things we have to look at are, do we break back in, continue to chop, then make our decision to the downside or to the upside? Or do we get maybe a retest of this, bounce back up, retest this horizontal level of support and resistance, and move on up? That was my initial thought. We're saying this is a bounce off of the trend line. We broke out, we're getting a retest. We came back to the crime scene and we're breaking up to the midline of this trend line and beyond, which would the next levels would be 350, 400, and then 450, roughly. That's what I see on a smaller scale, and then on a larger scale, all the way up to all-time highs. These are small levels of resistance, so they can be broken very easily. But this is probably going to be one of the stronger levels that we have to break through right here. But overall, in nature, MicroStrategy is still extremely bullish. It still looks very good. So our flagpole, bull flag playing out. Looks like we might have gotten a breakout. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we're still compressing. But I do think Bitcoin's probably going to make its decision pretty soon because of the M2 money supply and the global liquidity lag. They're both leading indicators on Bitcoin. And the M2 money supply runs 75 to 107 days, something around there, for the lag time before Bitcoin starts to run up. And then global liquidity is about the 75 days or something like that. So 75 to like 90 days, because it's not exact every single time. So we could be getting our run soon because we are within that window where things can begin to take off. Now we're going to take a look at global liquidity and what could possibly happen. So as you can see here, the yellow line is global liquidity, and it's been running for about 70 days. So I wonder if this next run up will take 70 days. Let's say this is the bottom theoretically. We already found our bottom, and then we pull it out 70 days. That would be a run up till mid-May, mid to the end of May. And then we're going to take a look at other examples where this move here on global liquidity is this move here on Bitcoin, or MicroStrategy, I'm sorry. So we'll take a look here and we'll measure how long it was. It was about 71 to 84 days of a run up. MicroStrategy's run lasted about 70 days to the peak, to this peak right here, 70 days. So as you can see, it kind of tells you how long the next move could be potentially. So we'll take this top to this bottom. That's 112 days. Let's see. And if we take it from this top, this bottom, where's the bottom here? The bottom's here. It's 130 days. So off by about 20 days. You can see it kind of gives you an idea of what could potentially happen. And we're going to look at another example here. Global liquidity ran for 49 days, and then so it's 49 days and then 77 days for the second peak. So we'll take from here to this initial peak, 49 days, and then 2 weeks later, at about 63 days, you had a second peak, which it kind of tried to mirror this move here, as you can see. You had that first move up, push down, and the second move up. So these are just little things that I'm looking at and trying to see, like, hey, maybe this is telling us that this next move will be 70 days plus or minus 5 to 10 days. Who knows? Because things vary, of course. The move can last a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but it's something to consider, something to keep in your back pocket. So when the move has been extended for a little bit, you can start saying, oh, well, I remember seeing that this runs for about the same time as global liquidity, and you can start connecting the dots and make an informed decision. On the SMAs, we got to bounce off the 20-week, which we definitely don't want to see. We want to reclaim that and get on top of it and continue pushing higher. On the daily, we lost the 50-day and the 20-day in the same day, which is not a good sign. Hopefully we can get a green engulfing candle and reclaim the 50 and the 20 again. But on the bright side, we're still holding the 200-day, which is a good bullish sign long term. On the Bollinger Bands, we did lose the middle band, so hopefully we can reclaim it and push back to the red. If not, it looks like we're pushing down to the green band, which would coincide with this bottom horizontal level of support and resistance, which would coincide with about a 230 price, and it would be somewhat of like a triple bottom. No, I wouldn't really say it's triple bottom, but it would be the third touch of this level here. Or maybe we make a higher low and we get a bounce off this trend line. Because you have two trend lines here. You got this trend line downward sloping, and you have this gray upward sloping trend line and bottom of channel. So let's see if price would bounce off of that. On the weekly, we got a bounce off of the blue band, potentially pushing down to the green band. Green band might support price at that same level where you have the downward sloping trend line with the upward sloping gray trend line. So maybe that's some confluence for price to continue up higher. The RSI on the weekly is looking bearish. We're creating a downtrend. It's not looking the best. That's okay. We did slightly break out of it, so maybe we're getting that same move that we see here, and maybe we're getting a retest of the mid level of the RSI to push up higher and eventually reclaim this yellow moving average. On the daily, we are still in an uptrend on strength. Still looks good, but we did slightly break underneath it and the yellow moving average. So we want to get back above that yellow moving average, get back to the midline, and move to overbought territory. And when we look at the Fibonacci, we close, but we're still inside the golden zone, which is still very bullish. We definitely don't want to get to the 786 and definitely not to the 886 because that goes to show that the move isn't as strong as we thought it was. But when you can get a hold at the golden zone or higher, a higher level here, then that goes to show that the trend is very strong, intact, and the bulls are still in play. But right now, it shows that the bears are overpowering the bulls, but we'll see if we can take over and push up to the higher levels. And on a larger scale, we can pull it back here and see that we're actually really just at the top of the golden zone here, and we didn't even break underneath the 618, which is even more bullish. So we'll see how it plays out, of course, but things are still looking good. I think it could potentially be short-term noise if things play out how we normally see with the Bitcoin cycle and seasonality, then things should be okay. But you also have to know that things can change and history doesn't have to repeat itself. And the Bitcoin cycle could end. We don't know. But we're going to go and play our odds in favor that history will not repeat itself, but more than likely rhyme. That's what we're anticipating. So we're going to go with the higher odds, and that's how we're going to play it out. There's no point in assuming that the unlikely scenario is going to play out. We want to go with the more likely scenario, which is the 3 years up, 1 year down, what it's done in multiple cycles, and it's shown us what it has done prior. So we're going to go with that same thought process. So if that plays out, then maybe this will just be a short-term noise for a longer and higher move up. That's all I have for you guys. You let me know down in the comment section. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.